Well, welcome. We are here today with Clifford Wessel. Clifford is the founder of CTT Coach and Zero to Yellow. How I met Clifford was, I guess we were introduced by a mutual friend.
Yeah.
And then you became a happiness ambassador here at A Dose of Happiness, which means that we promote awesome people doing awesome work in the community. That's what our wall says, awesome people doing awesome work in the community. So you became one of our happiness ambassadors. And then you and I wanted to get to know each other a bit better. So we picked a Saturday and we went for a walk in the park and we went for a coffee.
Yeah.
And then I think it was over 6 hours later that we were still talking. It was incredible. It was like so awesome just to hear so much more about you. And you taught me so much in that day. And what I learned was how much work you've done and your level of consciousness of the human and how we work. And it was just like, I was like in awe. And then we've had some amazing...
Well, it's kind of like a fun conversation because our lives have gone in so many different directions. And then we've kind of come up against the same kind of conclusions, and then again, our lives went in different directions. And then, so we have so many things in common, even though I would say every detail of our life is completely different. And I still remember driving down Deerfoot Trail thinking, wow, it's weird to feel tired because these kind of conversations are so energizing and I'm usually, just beaming afterwards. And for a minute or a second, I was thinking, oh, maybe I'm just getting old and I can't, do my shtick anymore kind of thing. And then I looked over at the time and I realized we'd been talking for like 6.5 hours. And I thought, oh, no wonder I was exhausted.
I know. We went
that was a lot of ideas we covered. In,
and you sent me that email and said, I'm so sorry, I lost track of time. I'm like, I lost track of time too. So that was really the day that ignited our friendship and just learning more. And again, we've had so many conversations. So I'm so excited. Thank you so much for coming and being part of Happified. I'm so excited to share more about who you are and all that makes you so amazing and the gift that you're offering to other people. So how I start off with everybody is, can I ask you this question, is how do you define happiness?
Yes, I love your question. And I'm going to answer your question with a question, which I don't know if you remember I asked you, is what is a human being? Which is how I start my conversations quite often, right? And so to accelerate a 20-year process, and get kind of to the punchline, I look at everything through an integral lens. So if you're going to ask me what happiness is, I'm going to look at it through 4 different perspectives. From a physical perspective, an intellectual perspective, an emotional perspective, and a spiritual perspective. And so quickly, physically, happiness for me is I'm a lifelong cyclist. I love mountain biking, I love road biking, and I love hiking, the outdoors. So there's a lot of things that if I want to get happy, I can just do physically. Now, sometimes, it's hard work, but then even the hard rides, you feel good afterwards. You feel happy afterwards. So there's the physical side, then there's the intellectual side. So I'm super naturally curious. I love ideas. You can throw out the craziest idea out there you've ever heard, and I'll listen. But I'm also super skeptical. So if you're going to throw out a crazy idea, you have to back it up. And then not only do you have to back it up, but I have to be able to verify it on my own. So I have this crazy side where I'm super open-minded, but I'm also super, almost like scientifically rigorous in my thinking. And then there's the whole emotional perspective, of joy and happiness of being around people you love, or sharing intimate moments, having deep conversations. That 6-hour conversation was for me like the 6 hours of happiness, right? And it was because we were talking about interesting intellectual ideas. And we were going for a walk, so we're getting the physical exercise. But it was also just, getting to know you and seeing your journey and sharing my journey and your ups and downs and all the different challenges you've encountered and how you resolve them, and just being inspired by your example and the different choices you made, which weren't always easy choices, because sometimes going within and learning deep things about ourselves isn't the easiest thing to start off with. But then, just so there was that whole emotional connection. But then there's also happiness from a spiritual perspective. And from a young age, I think I was kind of weird because even as a teenager, I knew I was meant to give the world something. I had no idea what it was or how to even figure it out. It was just kind of, and I thought maybe I'd write a book. And I just, even as a teenager, I was noticing, people aren't happy, they're suffering. And I could see how it was all self-created. Like they were, in their choices and words and actions, planting the seeds for future unhappiness. It was obvious to me, but I couldn't, like I understood it, but I couldn't verbalize it or even, like I knew it, but I didn't understand it, you know what I mean? And so that conversation we had for me was a moment of happiness because I felt like we're two souls that are traveling the same path, and it's been so different, but our destination is the same destination. We're here to serve others, and we're here to really, I think at a very basic level, relieve and reduce suffering and promote and motivate joy and happiness. And I mean, there's so much greatness out there, and it's so easy to get stuck in the small aspects of life. And I think we're there to kind of, I don't know, I'm more of like a push and jolt kind of guy. Well, not really, but intellectually I am. But you know what I mean? Like, there's different ways of doing it.
Okay, I knew you were just going to come up with like an awesome answer to that, to happiness. That was amazing.
And go away off tangent.
Well, no, because it's so much deeper than just, everyone thinks it's happy and, it's just happy. Like, you're the happy lady. She's just always so happy. It's all about like the happy face. And it's
For me, spiritual happiness is the ultimate happiness, honestly, because physical happiness and all that, it's all fleeting. But that feeling that you're living your life's purpose, whenever you connect with that, I mean, the whole world can be falling apart around you, and there's a sensation that I would say that is my favorite one for sure.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Well, let's talk about then a bit more about you and your journey, like your why and your journey of how you've got to where you are, like you said, to be serving and to be helping others. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, so I think like most people, or a lot of people, when I was in high school, I had some friends that definitely wanted to be doctors, definitely wanted to be engineers, definitely wanted to be architects and all this kind of stuff. And I really had no idea. And so luckily, the high school I went to had a psychology class in grade 12. And one of my best friends was first year university psychology. And so when I bumped up on psychology, I just thought, wow, this is so awesome. And this is really my thing. I seem to do really well in that class, like quite easily. And school, I've always been kind of like, slightly above average kind of student. But that one was one where I was just automatically came to me, and the conversations I was having with my best friend and what she was learning was just so fascinating that started me off on a certain path where I got a degree in psychology and worked as a counselor and started pursuing that aspect of my career. But really, if you look at psychology, there's many different perspectives on psychology. So I studied Jungian, cognitive, behavioral, existential, humanistic. There's a lot of different ideas, but deep down in my soul, I felt like something was missing. Like it wasn't until later that I realized that, I was living in my mind and I was living in the world of ideas and what's the best strategy. And like when I talk to a client, like how do I word things the best, most effective way?
Yes.
But it was all kind of up here in the intellectual field. And I find our society is very focused on, the physical and intellectual aspects of life. And that's kind of like our happy zone, our, safe place, that kind of thing. And so I guess lucky or unlucky for me, I tend to be super curious, and I had this kind of relenting kind of like, you're missing something, you're missing something, you're missing something. So I started, initially exploring all these different types of psychology, and they all had great insights and great gifts, but still I felt, something is missing, something is missing, something is missing. So then I started exploring all kinds of different things. So I started, going on some kind of crazy hippie, like find yourself adventure or whatever. I mean, I'm really not crazy, or maybe I am, but, I started studying with a Celtic druid. I worked with a African energy healer. I ended up working with a Sufi mystic, a Hindu monk, practicing esoteric Christianity, working with shamans from North and South America, different forms of Buddhism. One of my favorites, Hawaiian kahuna. And what all of these people had in common, although it sounds like a crazy broad range of perspectives, is that they were all basically on a type of mystical path. And instead of being up here in the idea world, they were actually, everything they were doing was going inwardly. It was all inner work. And so things like, facing my fears, my attachments, all the things I feel like should be some way or another way, like all my judgments, and, starting to really look at all of that and almost like deconstruct yourself. And I had done it at the intellectual perspective, where I had already had a pretty solid practice of every time I've had a thought, which is actually a lot of work, because we think like 2,000 thoughts a day, is really to start to think about what's my evidence for that thought. Like if I judge this person this way or I conclude that, like where's that actually coming from? Is that actually something logical or not? So I'd already done a lot of that, but now I started to go inwards and really work with my emotions and really start to understand who I was as more just than a thinking being, And then when I was done with that journey, I started doing some more in-depth apprenticeships with different spiritual teachers, which eventually led me to kind of feel like, okay, I've taken all of this in, and I know what that piece that's missing is. But now the next level is, because I actually thought figuring out that missing piece was like 95% of the challenge. And then once I figured out, everything would kind of like happen, right? And so once I figured out, I realized that's only 5% of the challenge. Now bringing like my piece to it, like we're all basically like part of the same team, and we all play unique roles, right? Like we all have our own life purpose. And so then the 95 was really to figure out, okay, how do I actually turn this now into a service that's not just parroting what other people have taught me, which was all amazing and beautiful, but what's my kind of like twist on it?
Like how you bring it all together.
Yeah.
And then how do you share it with others, but also to what I'm hearing from you. And again, similar journeys. I didn't do a lot of the work that you've done, but the work that I've done, it's almost like this birth of yourself in the process. Like you think you know who you are, but when you really commit and you dive deeper and do this, it's not only are you watching the birth of yourself, but then along the way you're finding that gift. How are you bringing this all together? And that's what I feel about you. And then how are you serving it to other people too?
And it's the birth of yourself connected to something way beyond yourself.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like when you're stuck in traffic or you're thinking about what you're going to have for supper today, or, like we spend so much of our time just stuck in kind of like the small self, and there's a much bigger self, but that bigger self isn't actually in isolation. That bigger self is actually connected to everybody and everything. And I heard a beautiful thought quite recently that, it might sound weird, but basically fear is the absence of God. And I know that God is a charged word for people, but for me, there's just a greater something out there, whatever you want to call it. And when I work with my clients, if they're Hindu, we talk about Hindu principles, and if they're Christian, we talk about Christian principles, and if they're Buddhist, for me, they're all connected. And the core themes are standard across, ultimately every faith out there is pursuing unconditional love, the ability to receive it and give it and be it, right? Like that's our core. Our core is unconditionally loving, but we have all these experiences, and they're almost like veils. It's like we're like this pure light, and there's all these veils that are wrapped around them that don't allow us to see who we really are. And so the job of removing those veils, it doesn't matter how you do it.
Yeah, no, I love that. I always say, I have this kind of analogy. I say that we're all like an artichoke.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've ever held an artichoke, but they're really uncomfortable to hold. And then if you've ever peeled one, so I always say so people are like artichokes, and some are a little bit harder to hold, but and you peel them, they're harder to peel. But when we get inside, we're all the same inside, and that it comes down to love. I believe that in the end, we all want to know that we are lovable, we've been loved, and that we've given love. That's really all that matters when it's all said and done. It really is. I'd like to think it is for most people. So I love that. Okay, so what gift do you want to share today with it? What gift are you here to share with people today? What is that something that?
So the gift today is I'm going to invite people to participate in a guided meditation. I call it an integral meditation. Because we're talking about happiness and we're talking about the 4 integral dimensions, but we're still in our heads. So I'd like to give people an experience of it.
All right.
So are you willing to be my...
I'm willing. I'm willing.
You...
Actually, I love that you say this because meditation is not something I regularly practice. I've tried it, and I've tried it. Nature is my thing. Music is my thing. Like I can just... It's easy for me. With music and nature, it's very easy for me to get into the flow or get into that state of calm or peace or whatever, I guess, is what we're trying to achieve through meditation. But meditation, my son has actually challenged me because he's very big into meditation, and he's been challenging me to explore more. So it's actually a piece that I'm working on in my own development. So I'm very excited to participate. So yes.
So I teach meditation. I don't personally do very much meditation. So there's two sides to meditation. There's meditation and contemplation. And if you're not the person that's like super into meditation, you could very well be the person that's super into contemplation.
Oh.
And contemplation is basically the active version of meditation, where you start to look at your thoughts and you start to pull away everything that you can't prove. Basically, you're trying to take away the layers of the artichoke until you reach a truth. And so that's actually an active process you can do. It generates the same effect as meditations. Now, in the Western world, we have a very limited approach to meditation, which ideally you'd be sitting cross-legged in the lowest position, and you'd be, you'd have great posture, and your eyes would be closed, and maybe you'd be humming Om or something, right? But if you actually look at meditative practices in the East, you have 4 types of meditation. So you have lying meditation, where you're just lying. I really suck at that one because I fall asleep. It's hard to really relax without falling asleep. Then there's sitting meditation. There's standing meditation, which I actually practice as part of a Tai Chi course that I take. And so you actually stand, and it's quite different to sitting, and it's quite interesting. And then there's moving meditation, which is Tai Chi. And then basically there's a lot of different environments you can meditate in. So for me, sitting in nature is 100% a valid meditation practice. You don't have to learn sitting meditation in a cross-legged position. Music can be a meditation, playing it, listening, that kind of thing. So there's many different approaches. So I think a really big part to my message always is like life in the world and you as a human being are a lot bigger and broader than you could ever imagine, and even way bigger than like I could imagine, and my imagination is pretty big. And so like something like meditation has so many benefits, like they've taken Buddhist monks and put them in MRI machines and looked at their brain and discovered that when people are meditating, they're actually in REM sleep state, right? And so REM sleep is the part where your body's healing on psychological, physical, all kinds of different levels. So it's incredibly healthy. If one way doesn't work, there's so many other ways of getting there. So
we could do a whole segment on that.
Just say like I'm a master meditator in nature,
Right.
and that's your mastery.
I like that. I'm a master meditator.
And you don't have to
I like
learn a way that doesn't fit you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Okay. Well,
sorry.
Yeah.
I'll have to apologize to your son later because I'm kind of like
No,
contradicting him.
I
But
love
I'm very
that
passionate
answer.
about it because people they won't go down a certain path because they think I have to do it this way. Like if I'm gonna get fit, I have to run a marathon.
Right.
And it's like there's a million sports out there. Find one that you love, because if you don't love running, then you're done, right? So, but there's so many options out there. There's like a million options for physical health. There's so many great things you can do for your emotional health. There's infinite things. So just find the stuff that works for you. Create your own formula. You're your own unique being. And find what works for you.
Yeah. Well, I love that answer because actually my book that's coming out, Drive Your Happiness, Amy Bishop, she has a song, More Than One Road, and I call that my theme song for my book. And it's exactly like that. There's more than one road, and there's a road for all of us to take. Yeah. And that is what this event, Happified, is all about, is finding your road. What is that you're going to resonate, but take some action.
And if I added something to that, I would say, and there's more than one you.
And there's more than one you. There you go. Okay, well, let's get into the meditation. How can do?
Yeah, okay, so it's super simple. So this is one of those things where, you can play along at home if you'd like to. Just find a comfortable position, a comfortable place to sit. You can do this sitting or lying or standing, as we've discovered in many different ways, but we're just going to do it sitting. And just start off by closing your eyes if you'd like. And start off by taking 3 deep breaths. So just following your breath in as you inhale. And then just let the air flow out naturally. And while you're breathing in and out, just take a moment to take kind of like an inventory of where you're at. You don't even have to label it with words. Just really get a sense of how you feel right now in this moment, this day, this month of your life, where you're at. Just kind of tap into yourself and get a sense of that. And now on the next inhalation, I'm going to invite you to bring your consciousness right into your body. And bring your attention right to the tip of your toes. Just got to get a sense of the feelings and sensations at the tip of your toes. And use every inhalation and exhalation to move deeper within your own physical body. We're just going to gently flow up your body. So starting off with your toes, to the balls of your feet. Just noticing all the different sensations. We often take all these different parts of our body for granted. We never really connect with the feelings. But the balls of the feet, there's often, you can feel like a bubbling or a buzzing. And it really varies from person to person. You can have many different sensations. You can feel like what feels like electrical current. At the very least, you're going to feel the sensation of having footwear on. If you don't have any, if you're at home without shoes and socks, then the sensation of the floor, the sensations of not wearing shoes. You might notice the ability to perceive different temperatures. So there's a lot of different things. There's a lot of different sensations and informations and experiences that are inside of you. Now coming up through your ankles and your calves. Again, just using your breath to go deeper inside of yourself and just pay attention to what's going on there. And what's really important is that just the appreciation of it, the consciousness of it. You can label it and say, oh, it feels like this or whatever, but really the more important part is just the experience of it. And then through your knees, moving up your thighs. Using your breath to connect deeper and deeper with yourself. Then through the glutes and the stomach, your lower back, paying attention to your chest. You might notice your lungs expanding and contracting, your heartbeat, different sensations from your stomach. Now you can go up into your shoulders and arms, your elbows down to the tips of your hands. Paying attention every time you bring your consciousness to a part of your body, how all of a sudden you discover a whole new world of experiences almost. Feelings like buzzingness, energized. Then moving up your neck, all the way up through your skull, noticing your tongue and your cheeks and your jaw, your ears, your scalp, just paying attention to all of it. Our physical body by itself is so fascinating and interesting. There's so much we're still discovering and learning. There's so much to appreciate. And now if you like, I'm going to invite you to bring your consciousness over to your thoughts. Just observe your thoughts. Become aware of them without engaging them or fueling them. Kind of like sitting in a meadow on a lazy summer afternoon watching clouds float by. Just noticing your thoughts without engaging them. And then if you like, I'm going to invite you to connect with your emotions. So emotions are basically like an onion or artichoke. There's many different layers. There's the emotion you're feeling right now. But then there's also emotions that maybe you've been feeling today or emotions that have been predominant this week. And then there's emotions that have been with you for maybe several months or years. Some emotions have been with you for decades. These are really hard to identify. We just kind of assume that life is a certain way. Like if you've experienced anxiety for decades, you might just assume that life is an anxious experience, or sadness, or grief, or anger. Sometimes it's hard to notice some of these. And then if you like, I'm going to invite you to go even deeper in yourself. There's a part of you that's always been with you. You can think of this as your higher self, your soul. That's this quiet part of you that's all-knowing and all-loving. Usually a very quiet part. One of the reasons people meditate is to connect with this quiet part. You can also get there through anything you love, like being in nature or music, sports. But it's that part inside of you that knows things without you even being able to explain them, that part of you. Part of you that's been with you your whole life, possibly before with your life, and maybe even will continue after. And now, if you want to get a glimpse of how magnificent you are as a human being, try to perceive all 4 dimensions at the same time. Your physical dimension, your thoughts, your emotions, and connecting with your being. Try to perceive it all at the same time. Most people find this impossible. You're so big and majestic and amazing that, it's hard for you to potentially perceive you in your totality. Isn't that crazy? You can see this meditation is very simple. It's something you can do on your own whenever you like. Whenever you're ready, you're welcome to come back. A good way to do that is by starting to wiggle your toes and your fingers, and then gently opening your eyes when you're ready. And then usually giving yourself a good stretch, really stretching out your arms and your hands and your feet. So how do you feel, Karen?
Good.
I'm kind of rushing the process along.
Yeah,
but
no.
Basically, you had it before, now you have the after. Now, what's your connection with yourself now?
Yeah, well, first of all, I do have to say when our meditation, it's an energy, like you feel the energy, like it's like as soon as you go, you can just feel the energy moving through your body, which I find is like, wow, that's the part where you got to stop every so often to feel that, because we're just always running, and we're like releasing energy instead of bringing it into us, right? Mm-hmm. And so to take that time to actually feel that in your body is super cool. The thoughts at first, I just really was in gratitude. I'm in such a place right now of,
wow,
especially with this event of nothing but gratitude that people are showing up to share their knowledge and that we're creating something that we can share. So for me right now, very much there. When you asked to go into the consciousness in the body, automatically I go to my heart. And then you took me to my toes and back up. But when you try to embrace it all, what I see that as is you're giving yourself an entire hug.
Yes.
Like I imagine myself just giving myself an entire hug of my body and just bringing it all in together and just feeling all of that. And that was cool.
I mean, most people what they really want, one of the things they really want is for somebody to really see them.
Yeah.
And yet they never really see themselves.
Yeah.
Right? So this is a way you can actually begin to see yourself.
Yeah.
Now, I just want to clarify in terms of feeling energy. Some people can do that very easily. For some people, they're not going to feel anything. It's totally okay. And some people are going to feel a little bit of whatever. So at the very least, you're going to feel the texture of the clothing you're wearing, the sensation of the chair.
Right.
So that's a great starting point.
Yeah.
And if you repeat this process, eventually you can feel more and more intense sensations for sure. So I think it's important to clarify expectations. So if people are sitting at home thinking, well, I'm not buzzing with all this energy and gratitude, what am I doing wrong? You're not doing anything wrong. It's just different people are going to have different reactions. Sometimes when I do this, some people will just start crying. They've been carrying grief for so long, they can't, it's the first chance where they relax enough for it to actually come up. Other people are being joy. So whatever your experience is perfect.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for that. Okay, so what is it that we can leave as a takeaway today for everybody viewing? What is that takeaway, that call to action that people can do to connect to themselves, that higher purpose, to find who they're meant to be, is starting that journey, what would you say? What would you offer somebody to go and start doing?
Wow. Yeah, that's such a crazy question. I mean, I love it. I think my mind first goes to like deeply evaluating your career and your happiness at work and your relationships and all this kind of stuff. But I find most people don't know how to do that, and they get stuck and they look at the same things over and over again. And it's so really some kind of coaching, really, or counseling is going to make a huge difference in helping them through that process. So, I mean, one of the things I love to do is just go into nature. So if people wanted to explore something, I would encourage them to, since the previous speaker was talking about going out in nature. So maybe go out in nature and take a question with you in terms of, if you could have anything in your career, what would that be? Or if you could have experienced anything in your relationships, what would that be? And just sit in quiet, listen. I like running water, the burbling of water, feeling the wind. Just ask that question, let go, and see what comes. And then if you want to do something super practical, you can go to my website, cttcoach.com. I have a career quiz.
Okay.
I do have an evil sense of humor. The quiz has some very basic questions, which I'm pretty sure everybody's going to fail. And it's just to show people that, we've put so much energy into education, and we put so much energy into our work, and yet we've put almost no energy into our career. And it's basically like learning about cars and building cars, but never driving cars. And that's basically every professional out there. And so, basically you have a job that people take for granted, which is to work on your career. And there's very simple things you can do, very powerful things you can do. The best time to look for work is when you're working. So there's all these things you can do that we just kind of throw and, on the back burner and don't prioritize. And then all of a sudden people get laid off and they're like, oh, I don't even have a resume and my LinkedIn is super dated and I got to start from scratch, and they're panicking. And it's like, you could have all that stuff ready to go, and you could have people offering you jobs before you even get laid off, and be in a total different driver's seat. So go take the quiz. And, some people will think they're going to do good. I think everybody's going to fail badly. And they're very simple questions. And because people really don't know very much about careers, how to manage them, how to explore them, that kind of thing.
In a way of like finding your purpose, your bigger calling?
Oh, the quiz is even just like really basic things, like what's a good resume? How, what do you do with like just really basic things. Right. Definitely if you want to figure out your calling, some people know it almost like from birth, and other people I would say come in and talk to me, and I will, help you figure it out.
Okay, well, we'll put that website up right there.
They don't have to do my 20-year journey. I've got it down to a much shorter time frame.
Right. So cttcoach.com, and the other website you have is zerotoyellow.com as well.
Yeah, so that's more focused on discovering who you are through relationships.
Okay.
So whether you're single or in a relationship, or it has to do with your children or family, broader family, it's discovering your true potential through relationships, or discovering your true potential through careers. Those are the two sites.
Awesome. We've put those websites up there for everybody to see. So we're going to end. I end with asking everybody. I start with the same question. I end with the same question. And that is, if you were the ruler of the world, what would you do in order to help people achieve and sustain happiness? What needs to be changed? What would you create out there? What would you make happen?
Well, I think maybe a crazy idea. I don't know if it would ever work or not. But I think, when we look at starting from the school system and then going into people's careers, I feel that we're so focused on, finding the right answers and solving specific problems correctly over and over again. I know that's an important part of the equation, and people need to learn, disciplined thinking and logic and all that kind of stuff. But I feel in doing that, we're cutting off creativity, we're cutting off actually broader curiosity, the ability to imagine things. And so, if I was some kind of crazy emperor and was out there on some kind of authoritarian, autocratic, whatever ruling thing, I would really open things up and try to get schools to really focus on the intellectual, emotional, physical, and spiritual potential as ask questions like, what is a human being? And maybe not answer that for the student, but have it as a recurring question that goes through the process. And I think, companies employ humans and they want to see results, but then they ignore the humanness of the person that's working for them. And so I have crazy ideas like, you could be loving what you're doing for work, but maybe you go and do something different because you realize that you can only do this for so long before you start stagnating. And really your next logical leap is something else. And, not to be like in these ruts where it's so kind of like always kind of trying to come to the right answer as opposed to asking powerful questions and giving people space to not know. That's what I would do. I would pass a law that says it's okay to not know. Be curious, but don't rush the answer. Don't try to solve it right away. It's okay to not know and stay kind of stew in it and explore and try things out.
Well, I call it the journey. Take the journey.
Yeah, exactly.
Just agree to take the journey.
Yeah,
of
I love
what
it.
that is, right? Agree to take the journey.
You can be my 20-star general, whatever.
There you
Of
go.
You already got the stars.
Yeah, take the journey, and I love that because I'm with you again. We're on the same page. We need to really look at how early we can be teaching this to children, and exactly that, how to be a human. What does that mean?
Yeah.
What does that look like? How exactly to be happy? What does that mean? What does that look like?
And it's scary. When you're a parent, you want your kids to never suffer, right? And you want them to be their most whoever, and then they want to make their own choices, and you're like, oh, that's a bad choice. Why are you dating that person? Or why are you? That's not a great career, And it's scary and it's challenging, but it's so worth it.
Yeah, no, I love that. Well, thank you for that. And the final thing we're going to do is this is my little happy dish, I call it. And inside, as we were talking before about
It's a
love,
dose of happiness.
It's my dose of happiness.
Okay.
Yes, it's my dose of happiness. So if you
Dose me up.
if you would dig in there and grab a card and read the card out loud, and that's kind of the final thought that we're going to leave with everybody today.
Okay.
These are I call them the love cards, and if you can just read it out loud.
Wow, I love this. Do something small yet unexpected for a coworker or family member.
Oh, right.
Wow, yeah.
Like a random act of kindness and make someone feel like they are seen and heard.
Yes.
We don't do that enough, right?
Yeah.
That's what that's telling me, to go make somebody feel seen and heard. So,
And start with yourself.
and start with yourself.
First,
I'll start with myself
I'm
too.
a mad scientist, but I always try everything out on
Yeah.
myself first to make sure I'm not
Yeah.
going down a
Do
crazy
something
path.
unexpected. I love that. Okay, well, Clifford, thank you again so much.
Thank you so much for having
For
me.
being part of Happified, and we look forward
my
to more
pleasure.
conversations with you and having you as a happiness ambassador with us that will carry on more of a journey and that. So thank you so much for being
thank
with
you.
us.